All right. Thank you for joining us, Senator Durbin. We appreciate it. We're going to get started right now.
Okay.
All right, Senator Durbin, let's begin. There's a lot of things we have to talk to you about today, but if we could, I'd like to start with sort of the news of the day in the Foreign Relations Committee anyway, talking about John Bolton. Now, he's been there at the United Nations as our ambassador for some time, but he was a recess appointment. Your thoughts on, one, the job he's done and whether he ought to be confirmed as the permanent U.S. ambassador to the UN?
We live in a dangerous world. We need the very best representing us in all places, certainly in the United Nations. I don't think John Bolton fits that description.
The more important question, of course, that arises, Senator Durbin, is whether the Democrats are going to filibuster John Bolton, because it's, I have to say, almost meaningless to vote no if you don't actually block the nomination by filibuster.
Well, of course, if you vote no, it expresses your own feelings, and that's a matter of public record forever. So it is significant in that regard. But in terms of stopping his nomination, it's a very important calculation. We have 45 Democrats. In order to stop a person's nomination with a filibuster, we can lose no more than 4, and so it's a very close count. And we're going to wait. Senator Reid and I have talked it over. We'll discuss it with the Foreign Affairs Committee after they've thought about it and just make our strategy decision next week.
We're talking to Senator Dick Durbin. He's also the minority whip for the Democrats' second most important person in leadership, and obviously that's part of the reason we're asking this question. Can you tell us who's on the fence? Is Senator Lieberman on the fence, Senator Durbin?
I don't know any senators in terms of how they're planning on voting on our side. As you can recall, it was a very close vote the last time. There were a margin of 2 votes, if I'm not mistaken. One of them was Senator Voinovich, who has now announced that he will support Mr. Bolton. So we're down to 1 vote.
Right.
And if there are some who believe that in the past year he's done a good job, they may be prepared to vote for him.
Yeah, that's really the last question I want to ask you about John Bolton is, I mean, I don't understand, and I realize you can't speak for Senator Voinovich. I'm not asking you to, but abstractly then, you know, what could one possibly think has happened in the last year that would make John Bolton good for this job? He has not hit anybody on the floor of the United Nations, and I guess that should count for something.
Well, he certainly has not been very diplomatic,
Yeah.
And I think that's what he's supposed to do for a living. I read George Voinovich's piece in the Washington Post, and I respect him. He took a lot of heat for the position that he took a year ago. He's changed his mind. He wants to support Mr. Bolton. I'm not going to second-guess him. From my point of view, all the evidence suggests, New York Times piece last Sunday, for example, Mr. Bolton is not a constructive figure at the United Nations. He's a divisive figure. And some people may cheer that on, but at a time when the United States really needs allies that'll stand up and work with us to make this a safer world, I don't think he's the person to send for the job.
We're talking to Senator Dick Durbin from Illinois. Senator Durbin has voted on the right side, if you ask me, of course, on the Alito filibuster and also voting no on General Hayden. But as a general principle, Senator Durbin, a lot of the complaints that we get from callers, listeners, people who email in is that the Democrats don't stand up and fight enough. That is, I would say, the overwhelming number one complaint that they have about the Democratic Party. And it is because we couldn't effectively pull off an Alito filibuster. It's because we didn't fight on Gonzales or Rice, which, I go back and give you credit for Rice being a moderating influence, but also important things like General Hayden and his overwhelming approval when he led the NSA warrantless spying program. Now, in that light, you can see that there would be profound disappointment if there was not another filibuster of Bolton. Can you understand that feeling, and what is the Democratic Party's response to that feeling among the voters?
I think there's a lot of frustration out there. We feel that the last 2 presidential elections were very close. Many of us believe we won the election with Mr. Gore, and that when it came to the Ohio situation with John Kerry, that too raised a lot of serious questions about the vote count and how it was taken. And I think that's built up a lot of frustration over where we are as a party and where we're going. The sad reality is that the president's reelection means that he is in charge for 4 years. And though I agree with him on some policies, by and large I don't agree with the Bush-Cheney policies as they've led our nation to this point. Many people who want to see a change in the administration want to see it now. We only have 45 senators. That means that if 5 of our 45 decide against our strategy, we cannot prevail. So we pick and choose our battles. And let me tell you some we've won. Social Security privatization is a battle that we won. This was really one of the key points of the Bush, platform for his second term in office, and we stopped him cold. When it was all over, he lost that battle. He's trying to revive it, but he's going to have the same fate ahead of him if he tries. And when we take a look at some of the other things that he's tried to push through in the United States Senate, nominees that were too controversial, ideas that frankly didn't serve this country well, we've had to pick and choose our battles. I feel the frustration more than most of your listeners because I have to count the votes. And I just say to those who feel frustrated, send me a few more troops. I could do a lot better if I had a few more Democratic senators.
Let me ask a quick follow-up then, Senator Durbin. Is there a discussion between you and Senator Reid and other leadership that, hey, listen, it's not just a matter of more troops, it's a matter of discipline as well, and that if somebody crosses you on a really important vote, and I would count John Bolton as a very important vote, especially if it comes down to one vote, that they might lose committee positions?
We haven't done that. Some have done it in the House during the Gingrich era, even more recently with Tom DeLay and others, but we haven't done that. Of course, if a person is not working with us on important caucus issues, that's taken into consideration in terms of committee assignments, but it isn't an exacting punishment because they haven't gone our way. We really find that, by and large, this caucus stands together. It's rare that we do split up. On most of the whip votes, the ones where we really go to members, we've done extremely well. I take as an illustration the stem cell vote. 44 out of 45 senators voted for federal financing of stem cell research. We felt that it was an important issue, it was important in the next election, and to bring 44 out of 45 together on that kind of an issue is a very positive statement.
I'm sorry, I got to press one last question here. Senator Durbin, stem cells is easy. Everybody's with you. Like 80% of the country's with you. General Hayden, he was the guy in charge of the warrantless NSA spying case, and he was part of the intelligence failures that led to Iraq. He covers for this Bush administration over and over. Why did he pass so overwhelmingly easily with so many Democratic votes? That's what leads to the frustration. Why didn't we fight harder on that?
Well, I voted against his nomination, but I will tell you that in terms of a caucus position, there were many who felt, and I agreed with them, that when you looked at the man's record, it was a record of extraordinary military service to his country and extraordinary work in the intelligence field, but I couldn't get around the very point that you made, that clearly he played a key role in this warrantless wiretap, which I think went way beyond the president's authority. That's why I opposed him. But it isn't a situation where you call 45 Democratic senators into a room and say you're not leaving unless you're with us. It doesn't work that way. You have to have a compelling argument. People have to be willing to stand together and take some risk together. And you can't always do that. You have to pick your fights very selectively.
Well, we want to get into the politics of this, but this sort of relates to it. So let me close the book on this issue by asking something in this way. We're talking to Senator Dick Durbin from Illinois. Senator, do you guys appreciate, look, the people who call and write us, I realize is not necessarily, we're not getting all the country. I understand that. But there is a sense that I get that those in Washington, certainly Republicans, but you guys as well, sort of don't appreciate that the anger that Cenk was referring to when the Democrats don't fight is not coming from some fringe group of crazy anti-war leftists, but is coming from real, genuine Democrats who don't want to see Democrats act punitively toward each other or to Republicans, but desperately want to see sort of strength and leadership. And that means standing up on bills that aren't just going to pass with help from the Republicans like stem cells, but standing up and maybe filibustering somebody who would pass if a regular sort of head count were taken. Do you guys appreciate that anger is genuine?
I do, and believe me, I hear it at home.
All right.
When I'm visiting back in Illinois, people say that. But I will tell you, I think we've written a good record. Give me a few more votes, give me a majority, we'll write a better record.
All right, well,
I think we're committed to the same basic values.
Well, let's talk about getting a majority. Missouri, Rhode Island, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Montana, and maybe one more would give you guys a majority in the Senate. How is that realistically looking to you?
All of the states that you mentioned, our candidates are ahead at this point. In Pennsylvania, Casey's ahead of Santorum by 15 points. In Ohio, Sherrod Brown is ahead of Mike DeWine in a recent poll, 6 points, another one 8 points. Claire McCaskill's ahead in Missouri. Tester's ahead in Montana. Of course, in the Chafee race, Sheldon Whitehouse has shown the first lead over Lincoln Chafee. So we have, we think we have the stage set for 5. The next, and our incumbents are all in strong shape. The next one, of course, the 6th one, is a tough one because we're talking about picking up a Democratic senator in a red state. And the 3 possibilities, the most likely possibilities, are Arizona and Tennessee and
Virginia, maybe?
Virginia. That's exactly right. Thank you for reminding me. I was just with Jim Webb last night. I would hate to not mention his candidacy. So those are the 3 that we feel are really the up-and-comers, that if we wake up on November 8th, and I think we will, and open the paper and say, my goodness, I didn't believe so-and-so could lose, as I've been through before on the losing side of that equation,
yeah.
I think that one of those 3 states, maybe even more than one, can come through for us.
And you feel confident about, like, New Jersey and Minnesota and Maryland, that those will be held?
Well, I do, but I mean, it isn't without some hard work. We still have a very important primary ahead of us in Maryland. I mean, 2 extremely good candidates, Kwesi Mfume and Ben Cardin. I serve with both of them in the House. I think they're both exceptional, and that primary is still ahead of us. In Minnesota, Amy Klobuchar has opened a significant lead in that race. She is an extraordinarily good candidate, and I think that she is going to be a winner in that race.
Senator Durbin, what are the things that you guys are going to emphasize going forward in this 06 race to make those victories happen? Are you going to focus on foreign policy and the disaster in Iraq, or are the plans that the Republicans have of Dick Cheney saying, "Oh, we'd love to talk about Iraq"? Is that going to work and have you guys focus on other fronts?
Today we had a rally with the House and Senate Democrats. We came together and spelled out where we want to go in certain and specific terms. And we've been hearing this for a long time. Your callers and people I run into say, well, what do you stand for? I think we stand for a lot of very clear things, but we haven't articulated the message as well as we should. Now we've changed that approach, and I think it's the right time to do it. Doing it any earlier might have backfired. At this point, I think we're ready for it. And today we came up with our plan with 6 specific things that we're dealing with. First, real security for this country. We're talking about, of course, the 9/11 Commission recommendations to make sure that we finally do those, that we don't receive failing grades when it comes to port security and chemical plant security, nuclear security, the things, intercommunications of fire and police and the like. We're talking as well about an America where we provide a decent minimum wage. 9 years the Republicans have said no to an increase in the minimum wage. At the same time, congressional pay has been increased by $31,000. And we won't give somebody making $5.15 an hour a penny more for 9 years. At the same time, we want to change the tax code so we aren't exporting good jobs. We want to make sure that college is accessible for everyone, so we have deductibility of college expenses on income taxes. And also, Congressman George Miller and I have a proposal to reduce the interest on student loans. Energy independence, moving forward on that is critically important. Affordable health care. We want to fix Medicare Part D so that we can negotiate for lower prices. And, of course, we want to push life-saving science like stem cells. And finally, retirement security. We've got to stop the president's effort to privatize Social Security. And we've got to protect the pensions that people work for a lifetime. Those are the 6. I've given to you in about 60 seconds. That's the message that we're going to be delivering from now until November the 7th.
Senator Durbin, to tie this topic with the last one, what we hear a lot from Senator Schumer in the press sometimes, and he's, of course, leading the campaign for you guys in the Senate in 06, is that, hey, look, we have to win first. And I heard you saying you guys need a couple more votes, and that makes a big difference. First of all, of course, no one disagrees with that. The question, though, is how do you win? And I think a lot of people would argue that you win not just by emphasizing the things that we all agree on, but fighting on the things that are harder, and that to exhibit strength. And strength isn't just how many countries can you invade, as the Republicans claim, on national security, but strength is standing up for your principles and willing to take on the so-called more controversial fights, although I don't think they're controversial at all. I think a great majority of the country still agrees with you on all that. Do the Democrats in the Senate have a good understanding or a sense of the way to win sometimes isn't necessarily to avoid some of those issues, but to take on a fight?
Well, I think we have taken on many of these fights, and we're going to continue to. And the Republicans have served up some very contentious issues. I mean, look what we faced in June. At a time when Americans were in pain over what they had to pay at the gas pumps, here come the Republicans talking about constitutional amendments to deal with gay marriage and flag burning, issues that never literally never come up as I campaign across Illinois and move around the state. Estate tax relief for the wealthiest people in America, when working families are struggling to make ends meet and trying to pay for the college education, their expenses for their kids. I mean, when you go through the list, what the Republicans have given us, I think, is a clear indication that as long as we have this rubber stamp Congress, they will not tackle the really important issues facing America. And we're going to take this to them, and we have. We do it every day. It's tough in the minority to break through in the media, but we're doing it every day.
We're almost out of time, Senator Durbin. But let me ask you quickly about one of the more contentious issues that seems like Democrats are struggling with as well as Republicans. It seems just about everybody, an elected representative in the Congress, both in the House and Senate side, seem very reluctant to criticize the president for what I think should be fairly obvious criticism for doing absolutely nothing to bring about a rapid ceasefire to the ongoing problems now in Lebanon, that there is some feeling that if you dare criticize the president and say we should step toward a ceasefire, that you'll be seen as criticizing Israel, which, of course, to many is the third rail.
Well, this is a very complicated situation. What do you do in Israel's case when you have the Hezbollah in southern Lebanon putting 10,000 rockets aimed at your civilian population, and finally, in a provocative move, kidnapping 2 soldiers and killing 8 others? I mean, that's the kind of thing that if it happened to any country, it's understandable that they would want to defend themselves and stop this threat that's across their border. Sadly, the Hezbollah forces are lined up in the most heavily populated areas. Striking at them has collateral impact on a lot of innocent people. You see it every night on the news. So what we're trying to do is to find some way to resolve this that ends up with a safe and secure Israel and removes this terrorism threat coming from the Hezbollah forces. It's not an easy thing to see an end to very, very quickly. But I think it's evidence as well that for the last 5 or 6 years, the Bush administration has not been engaged when it comes to foreign policy in the Middle East. Remember, as President Clinton was leaving office, one of the last things he did at Camp David was to bring in Prime Minister Barak as well as Arafat and try at the very last minute to work out a peace agreement. He committed so much time and resource to it, and in the 6 years since, very little, if anything, has been done to follow up. And it's sad today that this has deteriorated the way it has. There is no easy and quick answer. A ceasefire that allows the Hezbollah to rearm and put more rockets in place is not really a satisfactory ending. Putting in some force that guarantees demilitarization and security along the Israeli border, I think, is about the only thing that's a worthy goal for us to stand for.
Senator Durbin, what wraps all of this up, and it'll be our final question here, is coming back to John Bolton, because I'm not sure the Democrats have a good enough sense of what John Bolton's trying to do here at the United Nations. I get a sense from everything he says and everything we hear about Vice President Cheney's office that they would love to have this conflict get broader rather than get resolved, and have it result in bombings in Syria and in Iran. And we hear in the press about the conflict between Condoleezza Rice and Dick Cheney as to whether they should do those bombings or they should choose a diplomatic route. Now, in light of all this, isn't it of paramount importance to block John Bolton's nomination to the United Nations with a Democratic filibuster right now?
I certainly hope we do, and I hope that we can find enough votes to achieve that. We've got to take a careful count. As I said, we're down to a 1-vote margin, so one senator moving the other way could make all the difference in the world. I have serious personal misgivings. I won't be supporting Mr. Bolton's renomination or nomination for this position, and I don't disagree with you. I think he is a faithful acolyte when it comes to Vice President Cheney's neocon agenda. This idea of creative chaos, whatever in the world that is, that we would evoke some military struggles in some part of the world and believe that chaos is good for us in the long run, I just think is an extremely short-sighted and wrong-headed approach.
Senator Dick Durbin from Illinois, number 2 ranking Democrat in the United States Senate. Thank you so much for taking so much time and talking to us.
Good talking to the Young Turks.
Always appreciate it, Senator.
Thank you.